What is going on, everybody? This is going to be an exciting one. Again, talking about modern dating, and we have a very special guest today. But first, let me introduce everybody here. We got Joel. How you doing, man?
What's up, man? Good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. And we got Mr. Jaron. How are you?
Howdy. Doing well.
And then our special guest, we have Tripp from Tripp Advice. How are you doing, brother?
Up? Good, man. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. You've got a huge YouTube channel, and you've been helping guys in dating for what, years now? When did you start doing this?
Well, let's see. I started my YouTube channel in 2012, and I started Tripp Advice, the dating coaching company, just a year before that in 2011. So it's been about 12, 13 years. It's been a crazy ride, I'll tell you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm sure you've gained so much experience just over the years with that. But anyways, I'll go ahead and give you the floor. Just for anybody who may not know who you are, if you want to go ahead and just share a little bit more about that dating company and your YouTube channel.
For sure. So yeah, I'm Tripp Kramer. I started Tripp Advice in 2011, which is a dating coaching company for men. The background of how it all got started was I was a guy in my early 20s who struggled with meeting women and getting dates. And so I had to really take a lot of time and energy and effort to overcome all those fears of talking to women and all the struggles that young single men with no value have. And after putting a lot of effort into it, I started to see results. And to say the least, I kind of had this obsession with all of it. You know, it was like this weird hobby. Like it took over everything. I wasn't focusing on my work at the time. I was just focusing on going out, meeting women. And it's funny because when someone hears that, you think, oh, okay, wow, it was a rage fest. He was probably raging, like partying. And it really wasn't like that. In fact, I wasn't drinking any alcohol at the time or doing drugs or anything. I was really super focused on just getting better at this skill. And in 2009, a buddy came to me and he said, hey man, like, do you want to start a podcast and we can talk about this stuff? And I said, sure. So in 2009, we started a podcast. It's not around anymore. It's just a fun dating advice comedy kind of show with my buddy. And that just really created this confidence to be able to teach this and to be able to help guys. So it was a very organic process. I had no idea that it was going to go to this. I wasn't trying to ever be an entrepreneur or start a company or start a coaching company teaching men how to meet women. So it just kind of happened. And I fell into it just from building the confidence of talking to a lot of guys and helping them with their issues and being able to simplify it. So I had ways and theories of being able to teach men how to get results, which really worked. And so then in 2011, I said, all right, let's do this. Quit my job, went on unemployment, started a website, and was off and running since then. So it's been a hell of a journey personally, business-wise, and I'm still here today doing it. So it's been interesting hopping on channels like these and doing interviews like these over the years and seeing newcomers come in and seeing people leave the industry. And yeah, it's just been wild. So happy to be here and hopefully I can shed some wisdom.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. That's why just to introduce myself to you, I'm a dating coach myself. And I just love it when you're able to help these guys and then you see them transform. It is the most amazing thing in the world when a lot of guys. It's interesting, and that's kind of what we'll talk about today. It's interesting how now more than ever, this is what guys need. they're just missing the social skills and being able to get girls.
100%. I mean, I was there a few months ago. That's how I met you, Tripp. Like, you helped me in that space. You're the first guy I went to for dating help, and now we're all here today. Like, it's unreal. It's like, is this real life?
Man. I tell your story all the time, Joel. So you're one of my favorite stories of guys who I've helped, and I've seen such a dramatic shift in your results. So it's very inspiring.
Thank you, brother.
Joel, how are things going for you? Because I know that you went to Poland recently, and I'm in Europe at the time too. And I've been really into the intercultural topics as it pertains to dating. I think a lot of channels don't cover that. And my forte is creating super simple, flexible frameworks and systems, and then having sequences there within the various steps that you can adapt to whatever situation or localized market you find yourself in. And I found that in every European country, those sequences change a bit. The framework remains the same, but when you dial into specific details, the order of operations changes a bit. You have to make tweaks that here and there. So I'm curious as to what your experience has been since working with Tripp, and obviously improving just in your overall game, but also the differences between the United States versus what you're encountering in Poland.
Sure, that's a great question. I think, America was helpful because it got me out of my comfort zone, and like I had to go approach women. I was getting a lot of rejections being an Asian guy in a very progressive white town. So that was one of the reasons I moved to Poland. And I think one of the biggest differences I've noticed is that, like, a lot of girls don't want to hook up right away. And I don't know if you've experienced this as well. So like my mind is like, okay, we had a great date. Now we're going to go home and have sex. And they're like, all right, goodbye. I'm just like, it's just
Italians are 2 to 3 dates. Israeli chicks will, but they won't come straight to the house. They'll delete you if you mention straight to the house. But if you meet with them, usually within an hour or two, you can get them. You can seed the poll, and then kind of like earlier in my dating adventure, if you do a location change, 2 or 3 location changes, then you can get them the same night. But I've noticed I'm fascinated by cultures, and it's different in every culture thus far. In the first few days, I screw it up. So I come in playing my Mexico game, and you literally talk to them and they ignore you. Like they're in front of your face and they just ignore you. Like you don't even exist. And then once you dial it in, you're like, all right, got it. And I'm sure with more time, you can refine that process more.
Well, let's focus kind of on America here, because I think a lot of the audience, a lot of people are in America. Modern dating. Tripp, I want to ask you, what is your opinion on modern dating? What are the pros, cons, anything? I know you've been first. I want to plug it. You've been doing that live show, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Being in the studio,
dude, that's been fun.
Stuff. It's always so cool to watch. So tell me about what you know about modern dating and what you think of it.
I mean, it's a disaster to say the least. Which is funny because you're saying that, and you know the whole passport bros thing. So, and then Joel and Jared are talking about meeting women abroad, and it's like this is what guys are doing now. Or at least here's the thing. I don't know if a lot of guys are doing that. I think that it's just this trend for people to say it. That they're so sick and tired of modern women and modern dating that they're just going abroad to meet women, which I think is so stupid. But I get it. And I get the trend, the fact that it's just been really hard right now in America. It is harder than ever for men to be able to meet women, to attract women, to sleep with women, to get a girlfriend. And the reason why it's hard is because even an average woman is not necessarily going to look a guy's way unless he's got, really good game, right? Really good game, or he's got status or money. And so what's interesting is back when I was doing coaching in the very beginning of Tripp Advice, 2011, just a year later, Tinder came out. And I thought, oh man, Tripp Advice has only been around for a year, 2 years. This is going to be, I'm done, because now it's easy to meet women, right? Because when Tripp Advice started, online dating wasn't very big. It was about cold approach, going out, meeting women in person. So that's basically what Tripp Advice was. Hey, I'm going to take you out. We're going to go out. I'm going to help you cold approach, meet women, attract women that way. And then Tinder came out, and it actually did become easier to meet women. But now that pretty much everyone's online, it's so oversaturated. And what it's done is it has made the gap between men and women larger, because now that everyone's online, it's only about superficiality. So it's only about looks, and whoever has the best profile that can explain who they are, right? So on top of that, you have women online, because that's the place where people are meeting now. That even if you're like an okay looking woman, you're going to have tons of matches, tons of guys going after you. Combine Instagram and Snapchat and social media. Now, if you are an average woman, even online, so you're getting on social media and on online dating tons of attention, you think that you can have the best guy in the world because you have so many options. So now all these women are only going for the top tier men, and that's leaving, an average guy in the dust, unless he has supreme game and he's got a really good strategy. That's where Tripp Advice comes in. Then there's people who are like, no, game doesn't even work. Passport bros, you're screwed. Like, don't even try, which is not true. I think that's incel loser mentality, but that's basically what's happening. Is it's becoming harder to date. And for women, they're finding themselves more single too, because they're saying, and I'm going to bring this up on a panel in a couple weeks. I'm going to ask women, like, what's wrong with dating, or what's I wrote it down yesterday. I'm going to ask them, like, what is what's your biggest struggle with dating right now? And I know what they're all going to say. What do you think they're going to say when you say, like, what's your biggest struggle with dating?
Finding a
The
good
guys.
Yep. The guys. So, which is ridiculous, because it's like, wow, okay, I'm probably going to have a panel of like 4 women who are all going to say, oh, it's the guys, right? So it's like, okay, this has nothing to do with you then at all, right? So it's like you're just completely playing victim mentality, which is ridiculous. Because most guys, now, listen, you might ask some guys, and some guys might say, the women in a sense, but they're probably going to come back to themselves and go, well, like Joel, right? It's like, oh, it's hard to approach. I'm just not getting the matches. Like, it's going to come back to themselves. So, this is kind of what's happening, is all these women who are blaming the guys, but really they're single. So now more women are single as well as more men are single, because they're going for men who either don't actually want them or just want to sleep with them and don't want a relationship with them, which is the goal of every single woman. Right. And so, and they're also going, well, if I'm not going to be with the top tier guy, then I don't want to be with anyone. And that's ridiculous too, because if your goal is to have a kid, have a family, have a husband, and you're just going to keep waiting longer and longer and longer, well, you can't afford that as a woman, because eventually it's going to be harder and harder to have kids. Plus, your sexual market value is going to continuously drop. So that's, to say the least, the issue with modern dating for men and women. So it's this combination. I mean, listen, I guess I'm on the man side. So like, if someone asks me what's wrong with modern dating, I'm going to say women. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you should just give up as a guy. You just have to do the things. You got to play the game even more strategically than maybe you would have to do 20 years ago. And if I were to even come down to a more common denominator of like, well, is it really women? Like, what's the problem though? The problem is online dating and technology. But of course, you can't fix that. Online dating is here to stay. Yep. That's not going anywhere. So we have to constantly evolve our process as men through the dating landscape to get the results that we want to get with the ever-changing technology and how it's changing culture and the mindset of women.
I find it so interesting. Like, women are the selectors, and if they're selecting
for sex, not for marriage.
Yeah, fair. I've always viewed them because you know we always say courting a girl, courting a woman. Um, the guy has to go through go through hoops to make it work. And if they're the selectors of who they want, um, what like where's the accountability? Where's the responsibility on picking these bad men? Apparently,
And the problem is, we all know the coupley's tourism. So like women respond to their emotions, not necessarily logic, when it comes to the area of selecting the guy, at least for the initial stages of a relationship, or I like the term situationship, which is what a lot of the dating structures look like these days. And then a lot of times too, they run into overabundance. So we know whatever the number is, you'll hear things like 80% of the girls are going for 20% of the guys. I think as technology gets more pervasive in our interpersonal lives, but that number is becoming narrower and narrower. So at some point in specific markets, I found myself on both sides of that equation where all of a sudden, okay, well, tweak the photos and then use a call to action in the description and then link it to your Instagram. And once you get those structures down, you find that, oh my God, I have automated inbound online leads. So as a guy, it's really weird experiencing abundance too, to where you always have a new shiny object. You'll get a cool girl and then you'll literally stack up your whole next week of dates. Yeah, granted, some will flake every now and then, but you learn, okay, well, if the flake rate's this, then I schedule 2 dates a night. Sometimes it's real bad, so you schedule 3 dates a night. And you can essentially build a structure as a guy to where you are constantly having a new rotation, like a revolving door of girls coming in your life. I've noticed for guys, you have to work a lot harder to get to that point, and for girls, you have to be just basically average to get that response from guys. So even there's girls that I've dated before where we click, we have good energy, and it takes dozens of girls to go through to get that one. You're like, all right, there's a spark, there could be something here, and then all of a sudden she goes away, and you're like, what the hell? Like, okay, well, she found a new shiny object, but if I look the mirror back at myself, I've done that too, where I found really good girls, I'm really into her, and then all of a sudden, boom, a new shiny object pops up. And then you go after that, and then that girl flakes off, and then you go back to the previous girl. So it's almost like we're all kind of playing musical beds. And I know in the manosphere type spaces, they use the term like alpha Fs and beta bucks, or they use the dichotomy between alpha and beta. But I've modernized that, or I've updated that to think just guys who F versus guys who don't. And once you get into that first class, a lot of times you run into the same problems as a guy that the girls have too. That, okay, there's no good girls out there. Well, yeah, there's plenty of good girls out there, but the problem is there's so many options once you get to that, not even abundance, it's an overabundance to where you're just overloaded with options. It's like when you go to Cheesecake Factory, there's 320 items on the menu. You're like, shit, I want everything. Well, you can't. I mean, they have sample platters, but you can't get everything. You have to pick one, and then you get restaurant anxiety where you order something like, all right, I locked in on this order item, and then you look at the table next to you and food's coming out, and you're like, oh, I should have gotten that, or why didn't I get that? And I think that applies a lot to modern day dating. I've noticed that in girls that I've dated that I've been really into, and they just disappear. And it usually goes in cycles. It'll be like 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 months, or 2 or 3 years that they come back. But I've also found myself doing that too, if I'm being honest. I've done that to girls as well. And it's not that I don't like them. It's not that they're not good girls or I'm not a good guy. It's just there's so many options once you get to that. And again, most guys don't ever get to that stage. But if you set everything up right, you can get to that point. Maybe not in your local market, but at least abroad, there's areas where you can get into that overabundance stage, and you kind of get a taste of exactly what the girls are going through. So I think, as Tripp mentioned, it's the digital mediation in our interpersonal lives. It's really just changing the nature of relationships, or as I mentioned earlier, situationships is what they appear to be more like these days.
I think that's a really good point too, and especially the way you put it, where if you reject a girl, it's not because you don't think she's like a cool girl or a good girl. You just have so much abundance. I think that's an important message for guys to hear, because often in those beginning stages when a guy gets rejected, it hurts so bad. It's like, man, there's something wrong with my character. I'm just a bad person. So hearing a message like that it's never personal. It's just they have so many options. Like they're obviously going to look for the cream of the crop, especially if you're new in dating. It's like most likely you're not going to be at that cream of the crop level,
Well, it
right?
becomes an
So,
addiction too. You get that novelty factor. So as a guy, every new girl you get that dopamine rush, you get that hit, and you're like, yeah, and you chase that high, and then sometimes there'll be. I had this happen recently where like half my rotation blew up because it was summertime. Girls went back to school. They left jobs. They left cities. I live in Mexico City. I'm in London right now, but Mexico City is a transient city, just like New York, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, London, one of those global cities. So people come and go. Life happens. And we're in an interconnected, globalized world these days. So life happens really quickly, especially for guys that travel or they really have no borders anymore. So we're just kind of all shuffling around the globe. And then you run into someone, boom, okay, the situationship lasts for a temporary amount of time and then it goes again. And there are times where that happens where, let's say a week goes by, you lose half your rotation, or let's say that you have a flake rate that's like, okay, two of three girls will flake, so I have to triple stack dates to ensure I'm doing something on a Friday night, Saturday night. You will have those nights where just they all flake, and then sometimes you'll string weeks together where just you're off your game. And I love how they call it game. I was a baseball player, and I remember in college when I was in a slump, it's like you can't do anything. You just like it's like just put the ball in play, just don't strike out. Okay, now I put the ball in play, I ground it out. Okay, hit a gap, just get on base, and then you start getting a little cocky, you get confidence. All right, let's do a double. Like you jack one over the fence, and conversely, when you're on fire, reminds me of beer pong too. Like I was either trolling, sitting under the table all night, or on fire, just like couldn't miss a shot. In sports, like when you're on a streak, it's like, oh, best pitcher in the league, lowest ERA, like, oh, no one can hit him. Like in your head, I got him. Like this guy ain't shit. And I've noticed that happens in game too. So very quickly, your entire paradigm can change, and that kind of throws guys off too. And again, I think it goes back to just that the rapid, interconnected, global nature of the world in the analog world and the digital world, and that's what's causing a lot of issues. But HUDs, as you mentioned, a lot of guys do take that personally, and it's not really personal. It's just the nature of the game, which is why it is appropriately called the game.
Yeah, I one other thing I want to say with it, with everything being so interconnected and having so many of those brief situationships, now more than ever, the likelihood of the whole alpha widowing concept is much more likely. And now you need to stack up against more people than you ever had to before. And I think that is huge, and that's what makes it so difficult for guys. Because in the past, you smaller tribes, smaller towns, it's easy to or it was easier to find a connection. But now, I mean, that's why guys have to level up so much, because a lot of the experiences that these girls are having, and then the people that they meet, even if these guys are just using them for a quick night or whatever, or a short situationship, you got to stack up against all of them. And now more than ever, there's a lot more competition.
I've seen a lot of, and I'm going to put this question out to the panel. We all know the term alpha widowing, but I've started using the term retroactive alpha widowing. So I was giving an example to a buddy the other day. Second girl I ever slept with, I studied abroad in Guadalajara, Mexico, back in the early 2000s. So pre-internet, pre-smartphones, definitely pre-dating apps. So all of the interactions or relationships actually back then, they were all analog. They were in person. And I remember second girl I ever slept with, dated her for a while, and then all of a sudden she flaked. She kind of ghosted on me. 8 months went by, and then out of the blue, she hit me up. And she's like, oh, hey, sorry, I had a boyfriend. I met someone, again, in the analog world, not digital. And it kind of bugged me for a while. But to this day, this girl and I still hang out, and we still have fun, and we still hook up. But years went by to where she came back around, but she's my age. I'm 36. So at 19, she was a little cutie. And I think knowing that, like, the value curve for a lot of times, not all of them, she's actually kept herself in really good shape. And I'd say she's probably hotter now than she was 19 because she has some money and she, invested in her self-care. But I think that value curve for her, it's like, okay, it's gone down over time and mine's gone up over time, where when we were 19, she's like, oh, I met someone better, like this Jaren guy. Yeah, whatever. But now I think there's such a separation in the value curve. That's where I came up with the term retroactive alpha widowing, to her, like, she's mine. I mean, anytime I call her, hit her up, text her, invite her on a trip, invite her out or whatever, she drops everything she's doing and she's at my door. That was not the case 17 years ago. God, I'm getting old. So that's why I'm going to put it to you guys. Have you noticed that what we commonly knew as alpha widowing is looking more like retroactive alpha widowing? And a follow-up question, that would be the digital nature of that. Whereas if she's following you on Instagram, I've been in Europe almost the last month, or I've been on the road. So they see the stories, and girls that I completely forgot about are hitting me up. Hey, when are you back? Or, oh, where are you? Or, oh, I want to see you. like for the last 3 months, I was at home behind a computer working every day. I didn't post anything. Like, what are you talking about? You know where I live. You could have seen me during that time. So I think I think the space needs to be upgraded as the technology starts to upgrade, and these concepts that we've known for a while need to be updated too as the technology continues evolving.
Well, it's interesting. I've never heard the term alpha widow until now. What's really interesting too is like as we uh, as culture continues to evolve, new terminology pops up, but it's just to describe things that have always happened. You know what I mean? Like people say the word ick. It's like, what's the ick? It's like, well, it's a new word, but it just means like something that a girl doesn't like about a guy. Like it's nothing crazy. So as I'm learning about alpha widow, that's interesting because I've experienced that in my own life too. It's like that woman, who's always going to be around because you basically you got her hooked. You know what I mean? And your game is so strong with her. And now you're saying, Jaron, with social media, it's taking that to the next level because they get to continue to see you. Eventually, if you just disappear and social media wasn't around, maybe they'd think about you, but you would eventually fade in the memory. But, Jaron's traveling. He's doing cool stuff. He's posting a cool picture of himself. And she continues to kind of be hooked on that. But I'm still kind of trying to understand what's your thought or question around this. Like, I'm trying to understand what do you mean by retroactive?
So let me try and clarify exactly what Jaron's saying. And just for anybody who's listening and doesn't understand this, I'm sure most guys do, at least guys that are in this space, but there's a lot of people that may not. Alpha widow essentially is somebody, they were in a relationship with somebody who was the best they ever had, and they never stopped thinking back to that relationship. And so what Jaron's essentially talking about when he's saying retroactive alpha widowing, like at the time, yeah, he was not that guy, but he became that guy through that self-improvement. And so when you work hard as a man to self-improve, that's when that retroactive alpha widowing can occur. I've had plenty of girls myself that have reached out to me a couple years later because they started to see different things that I was doing and I was leveling up in life, and they had me back then, but they had me when they thought that they could get better. And then when they see that they made a bad investment decision because I went up in value, they regret.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess I have had that. It was I don't know if this is exactly retroactive alpha widowing, but where when I was in college and I was not the alpha male in college at all, and then years later, connecting with someone over Facebook or connecting with someone over the DMs and Instagram, and you have become more, let's say, alpha, or even more specifically, you've just created more value. And then all of a sudden they see you in a different way. And then it's a lot easier, you know? But the other thing too is in those situations, if it's someone from you got to remember too, if it's a woman from a long time ago that now wants you, her SMV has declined. So it's kind of this combination of, okay, yeah, your value has raised as a man. Hers has probably drastically dropped. Like, I don't know, for Jaron in that case, some of those women, like, how old are they now?
Yeah, they're my age. So the point I was
Which is
getting
what?
at 19, yeah, I'm 36. So at 19,
Yeah, exactly.
still
Yeah,
super
right.
cute. Although I was jacked, I was in good shape at 19, but my game wasn't as developed. But again, in the example I gave, she was the second girl I ever slept with. Well, I have a lot more experience now. And over the years, I think her probably relative or perceived local market value has gone down, whereas mine has gone up. So I think it's that. So at 19, she thought she was here and she thought I was here. Well, those are inverse now. And I actually got
Yes.
that idea. I used to listen to Adam Carolla back in the 1990s on the West Coast, the show Loveline. It was syndicated like 10 p.m. every night. So like us West Coast kids always listened to it. And he made the point back in the 90s, like Pamela Anderson. She was like the supermodel, the star celebrity that every guy wanted to get with. We all had posters of her on the wall. Pamela Anderson, the Aspen Blease, Cindy Crawford, whoever, but like those 90s hot supermodels. And even back then, he'd make the point, is like, at some point, that curve is going to inverse. Like, all right, Adam Carolla just starting out on the radio, and Pamela Anderson, she's at like the peak of her game. But at some point, Pamela Anderson's going to go down and he's going to go up, and they're going to inverse. And that thought occurred in my head the other day. And like, Google Pamela Anderson and look her up. Like, she doesn't look like she did in the 90s. I mean, that would be a rough night for me to even consider doing that. Whereas 1993, oh my God, like God status. So at some point, guys, if the girl perceives you as being lower than her, well, those growth curves are going to inverse at some point, as long as you're doing the work. And but women, they can slow the aging process or whatever too. But for guys, really, it's about the value and creating the status, the wealth, and keeping yourself in shape. I do the anti-aging stuff too. I try to treat my body well, and you can really see that happen where your value is going up and hers is going down, and they will cross at some point. And I think that's where that idea of the retroactive alpha widowing occurs.
This is why I like being a guy, because as a man, we do have it's funny because I feel like a lot of red pill or at least incels in the manosphere, probably wouldn't think about it this way. They think kind of men have the really bad ticket. But if you're young, okay, let's say like you're like 18 to 21 years old, and at that point your SMV is super low, right? Super low. You could do a lot of things, but it's like Jaron, you said you were jacked when you were that younger, but still, like your SMV was just lower because you're a younger dude. You probably didn't have a lot of money. Didn't have a lot of game. You were just kind of starting off, right? So it's like
I hadn't come into myself yet.
Yeah, you didn't mature.
Like, here's who I am. Here's what I'm about. I'm solid. I'm put together, and
more confidence.
At 19, you're kind of like you're just going with the wind.
Exactly. Same here. So it's like if you learn that, right? Like if there's a 20-year-old right now watching, and you just do your best and everything you can, all your resources to just learn game and try to become at least as high status as possible, which I don't know, some guys learn this very late and don't come into that. Your opportunity, you have a longer opportunity, more opportunities in your life. Whereas like for a woman, it's like a very sharp incline and then it starts to decline pretty fast, where it's like for us, again, it slowly goes up over time, but you can even have more of that if you start building yourself, you start working on personal development, confidence, status, all those things, and game in the early years. You actually will have a very, very long window, longer than some women. So that's why. I mean, I should say though, it's never too late. We just signed up a guy over a coaching program who's 70 years old. So there's always an
That's
opportunity.
wild.
I know, it's crazy. And even I never thought like that would happen. Like, okay, at one point, the oldest person I worked with was like 61, but we're talking 70 years old. It's never too late. But yeah, that's kind of the cool thing about being a guy is like we have a little bit, I feel we have a little bit more control over being able to, kind of work the system a little bit.
Yeah, I would say too, one of the things that's really screwed up with culture now, especially in America, is that it's pushed for these girls to, live their 20s by going out, drinking all the time, partying, like nothing matters, like you don't settle down until later. And that wreaks havoc on their value comparatively to guys. They can screw up a little bit, but yeah, guys are judged more on what they bring to the world, not just their inherent beauty.
Yeah,
Definitely. And I think a question for you guys too. What a lot of times in the red pill space, and Hudson and I have been talking about this, they talk about how money is so important. You need money. And what I'm finding is that right now it's better for me to learn game, go out, learn how to be attractive with women and stuff, and let the money kind of come secondary. Because when I upset, because there's a good saying like, if you're making money, you're not getting women. If you're getting women, you're not making money. So what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I'll hop into it first. Yeah, I think that money, yeah, as we talked about, and like my opinion on it, It's more about game. It's more about the mouthpiece. And as long as you are successful enough, like, you don't have to be a millionaire to get chicks. It's the same thing as like how some guys will go to the gym and they'll work out like crazy to get the most ripped body ever, thinking that that's going to be the moment. Like, they're going to get all the girls once they got that body. It's the same concept. Once I have all the money, I'll get all the girls. And I think it's very skewed. You should just be successful. And you also will find you'll find a lot of women out there that really don't care that much, because they just want to be they want to be able to they want you to be able to sustain the lifestyle. But there's not that many gold diggers. Now, if you're living in like Miami and whatnot, you're gonna find a lot of girls that are much more superficial. But the average girl really is not as superficial as I think a lot of these red pill content creators push them out to be.
Yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that. I think that is one of the issues I find with red pill is, with like Fresh and Fit and I don't know, maybe a little bit like Whatever Pod and all that, like talking about how all these women, yeah, just are gold diggers and like are getting flown to Dubai and all that stuff. It's like, no, like, yeah, I guess that's happening to like super 9s and 10s, but like all of them, no. You know what I mean? Like, I've also found this is my thought. I've worked with guys for so many years. And when I talk to guys and they show me the girls that they're excited that they got a date with, or a girl that they find very attractive, they're not showing me 9s and 10s. I'm finding that what I'm attracted to, what you guys are attracted to, what other guys are attracted to, it's a very large spectrum of women. Like, I'll have a guy be like, oh, dude, I got a date with this girl. Oh, she's so hot, blah, blah. And I look at her, I'm like, I wouldn't date a girl like that. And whatever, no offense, like, that's great. Is he delusional? No, I think that beauty can be subjective, at least for guys to a point. So there are, and to argue for the red pill stuff is like, well, okay, well, even these average women, 7/8s or whatever, 6s, are still thinking that they're hot shit and they're not looking guys' way. But if you have the right game, like these guys who, listen, don't have the highest status, they're probably not going to get a 10. They can get the 6, 7, 8, and they'll be totally happy with it. And that's great. What are your thoughts on that?
That's so
Yeah, I've got
funny.
a
I had a date the other day with a girl that I got total one-itis for. Like, I was like, this is the girl I've been looking for. She was super banging to me. And I always take a picture like of us when we're on the date to like remember it. I looked at the picture after the day. I'm like, she was like a little boy. She like wasn't very, like, attractive in like a photogenic sense.
Are you okay, Joel? You went on a date with a boy? What are you doing out there in Poland?
We'll say that's for another podcast. We told Jaron we're switching over.
Joel, wait till you get big. Yeah, you'll see in the comments, Joel likes boys. Like, when it's clearly tongue in cheek, a joke, and people are funny.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, and I looked at the picture. I was like, "Is this the same girl I was on a date with?" Like what the hell? So yeah, it's definitely subjective for sure.
Yeah, with the money thing, I've noticed a lot of guys, and you'll see on more kind of mainstream red pill kind of minister type channels that they always tout that refrain that, oh, it's all about the money. Oh, just make bank, bro. But I know a lot of guys. I've lived in some high net worth zip codes in the U.S. before I went abroad. And I live in a high net worth zip code in Mexico even right now. To take that back, I still live in a high net worth zip code. And you'll see guys all the time, and a lot of buddies of mine that they'll lead with money. So find yourself a friend who leads with money in his dating interactions and ask him how well it's going. These guys usually get taken for because I have a good buddy in California. He doesn't do this anymore. I coached him out of it, but he's like, third week with the girl, he's taking her to like all expenses paid, like Vegas trips, and taking her abroad. Like, oh, bro, I bought her a Rolex for her birthday, or oh, I helped her finance a car, and then the chick cheats on him and then just runs him through the ringer. And then for me, I'm chilling on the beach and like 420 snacks and snuggles. Hey, we're gonna watch a San Diego sunset, play the guitar, and have like a less than $10 Kroger picnic on an old moving blanket, which make fantastic beach towels because it wicks the sand off of them. Like, that was my sequence in San Diego. He's like, bro, like, you're getting these hot chicks for almost free. I'm like, they don't care about the money. They care about, are you able to make them feel good emotions, and are you able to do that consistently? Now, if you need to lead with money to do that, like, yeah, the all expenses paid trip, who doesn't like that? But when it's a Wednesday night and you're working late hours and she comes over and there's really nothing there, then that's when you're gonna lose her. But she wants that lifeline, that economic lifeline, and since you led with that in the relationship, she'll stay on board to keep getting those benefits. But if you're not making her feel those feel good emotions, then she'll go find someone else to do that. I came to this conclusion when I was in California that you need to figure out really quickly, is she putting you in the box of the guy who F's her or the guy who finances her? There might be some overlap there, at least for a bit, but usually she'll make a pretty clear delineation, like, okay, this guy finances me and this guy F's me. I recently had a girl the other day, she's like, I haven't talked to her in a couple months. She's like, hey, you should be my sugar daddy. I'm like, no, like I could get that for free. Like I only hang
Wait,
out
what?
with chicks that actually
She
like
said,
being with.
did she say, "Oh, you should be my sugar daddy"? I thought you said you should meet my sugar daddy, and I was like, "Wait, what?"
No, she asked me. She's like, "Can you be my sugar daddy?" Because she's seen all the travel stories. I went to a music festival, and then I did the Europe trip, and then I'm going back to Mexico for a week, and I'm going camping with my family for a week, and then I'm back to Mexico for 2 weeks. I'm going to another music festival. So now she's seeing the stories. She's like, hey, can you be my sugar daddy? I'm like, no. I was like, but if you want to be a regular girl who dates me and you earn that spot in my life, I have no problem taking my girls traveling with me. In fact, a lot of times I prefer it. It's much more fun for me. But you can't. That's not a condition of us moving forward. That's something I determine once I say that you're invested in me for me. Then I'll start opening those doors and presenting those opportunities. And the guys that get in their head, oh, it must be with money, they reverse that order of operations. They lead with the money, and then they find that they're not getting what they really want out of the relationship, which is that genuine burning desire. So I think there is a misnomer or a misconception to space where, like, once you have money, it's going to solve all your game problems, just like you said, just like going to the gym and getting jacked. I did that too one time. Like, all right, I'm 10% body fat almost year round. I look like a fitness model. And then I found, like, actually when I'm a bit chunkier, the girls like me a bit more. A lot of times I've had girls say this when I'm in really good shape. They're like, hey, it's kind of intimidating. Like, I feel like I can't live up to your physical standards, and they get insecure. And guys, in your game evolution, you'll find this. You'll start getting those hot girls that you think are hot, because it is all subjective as we determine. And then the girl will think that she's not good enough for you, and that's a whole new mental model upgrade you have to make. And I always tell guys that I coach, a lot of times your game gets ahead of you. You still have these old belief systems, but in front of your eyes, new milestones are being hit, and you have to step back outside of yourself. Like, oh, like, these types of girls are into me now. We're like, oh, this girl actually really likes me for me. Like, that doesn't match my inner system. I have to upgrade that. So be really careful, guys. If you're falling into the trap of, like, oh, money will solve all my problems, like, it affords you options. It is really fun to take a girl to a nice restaurant or to go on an impromptu trip, but I find that my favorite girls, I used to call my Wednesday girls, just the girls, like, she works hard. She's got a lot going on in her life. I do too, like 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. She doesn't have a lot of time to herself. I don't have a lot of time to myself. She comes over and she looks forward to that time slot all week long, and she brings her A game. And I look forward to seeing her all week long, because I get to take a break from my life, then have a one-on-one interaction with the girl that I'm legitimately into, and she's legitimately into me. And again, those can evolve into, like, okay, hey, let's go on a trip, let's go on a vacation, let's go to a fancy restaurant. But I never advise guys to lead with money. That's always going to lead you down a road that you're really not going to like the outcome or the destination of.
What you got to remember too is, like, women are not going to sleep with you if they don't respect you. And I feel if you end up leading with money, you can easily do that. That can easily turn into you simping, and then they're not going to respect you, and then they're just going to be there for your money, and then you're really going to just attract those actual gold diggers, right? And that's the whole thing with, like, simping and leading with money. It's like you're offering value when they haven't even shown their value yet, and they know that. They're not idiots, right? So at that point, they realize, oh, this guy's not really in abundance. No social proof there, and then they don't respect you, and then they just try to drain you. But yeah, I mean, I work with guys too. I'm working with a guy right now. He is insanely wealthy, and he's even a pretty good looking dude, and he's not short. He's got everything going for him. Why is he working with a dating coach? Well, because you might be a decent looking dude with a ton of money, and he's also a doctor, so he's got status there, that does not equate to, okay, you're just going to get all these women, right? It just doesn't work that way. It can, but you still need to have some sort of game. You need to know what you're doing. You need to be a guy that women can respect. And I feel like a lot of guys who, kind of like you were saying, Jaron, it's like the guy who starts to almost increase in value and doesn't really know it. So mentally, he's still behind his actual value, which actually decreases his value, right? So he thinks that he's, it's like body dysmorphia or something like that, like mental dysmorphia. It's like you still see yourself as that loser, even though you're not. But because you see yourself that way, you're going to be acting that way. And then therefore, you're not going to end up getting any women.
Dude,
Here's
I
a
like what you
revelation that
said
changed.
from dysmorphia. That's a great analogy. And Hudson and I have been working on this a bit too, because I'll come to him, I'll be like, yo, man, like I'm having like insecurities about not being super rich like Tate. And it's exactly what it is. It's dysmorphia. And it's like,
Wait,
dude, your
hold on.
value-
Why did you say that? Like Tate?
Oh, so yeah, I've Hudson and I've been talking, like I've had to stop watching red pill content because I'll listen to these shows like Fresh and Fit, Andrew Tate and all that. And I respect them because I mean they're top men, but like I'm never gonna be fucking rich as Andrew Tate. You kidding me? Like,
dude, you're going through what an average woman is going through. It's so funny. Literally, it's like body dysmorphia, mental dysmorphia. Think about that for a second, right? It's like you're going, I'm never gonna be like Tate. That's like a girl looking at a you know, I don't know what magazines do girls read now. I don't know, a Cosmo or something like that, or Maxim or something, and they see this like super hot girl. And they're like, oh God, this is what guys want. I'll never be like that. It's like, dude, don't compare yourself to the 0.00001% thinking like I need to be at that level. And this is, dude,
right.
You bring up a good point. This is like, I'm having a little bit of a revelation here. It's like, this is the problem with social media now. This is what's happening is we are all, men and women, we are all getting so discouraged because we see other people who have more of what we want. We go, oh, I'm never going to have that. And then boom, we just kind of, you know, go back to sedating ourselves with drugs and food and inaction.
Totally. 100%. And
Yeah.
I think that's like a human thing too, because like even we had a podcast a few weeks ago with Jaron, Hudson and I, and you guys were talking about stuff. And I was like, dude, I'm like so below you guys. I have no idea what, like, I can't relate. And yeah, it's just like, it is really a social media kind of dysmorphia thing. I like that.
Yeah. And you just need to accept it. Like, you're never going to get to a certain level, but that doesn't mean that you can't improve to a level that you're going to be incredibly happy at, because as you continue to improve, your opportunities expand, the quality of women, the attractiveness of women, it all goes up. So would you rather wallow in the fact that you're never going to be a certain way, or are you going to accept it and try and get as close as possible?
Totally. And that was the choice I had to make in that moment. It's like, all right, I listen to these guys' advice, I go out, I get better, or I feel self-pity. And so, I mean, you guys all do coaching for men. Like, how do you work with a guy who is in that state of just like, I can never do it? Because that must be tough, like mentally. Tripp, especially like when a guy's just so down on himself. How do you pick that guy up?
Yeah, I mean, here's the first thing is a lot of those guys don't reach out to help and get coaching because they don't even think that it's possible for them, which is sad, right? So, unfortunately, I don't. And my team, we don't directly talk to those guys. I think we talk to more of them when they watch our content. But yeah, no, we have obviously worked with guys who still come in and they feel like, oh, like I really want this. I think it can happen, but like this is just not happening. And I think first it's a lot of mindset switching before we go into anything practical. It's like we have to, kind of like I was saying earlier, like we have to let them know it's like, dude, this is possible for you. You have to understand that you're probably super, I don't know, maybe you've been watching too much red pill stuff, or maybe, I don't know, you just grew up kind of similar to myself, seeing that like, oh, the only guys who are successful with women are guys who are like super jacked or have lots of status. And so it's like, you have to really explain to them, almost persuade them that that doesn't have to be the reality, because it's not. And that if you understand how women work and you understand how to get them attracted and what they're attracted to, you don't have to be the richest guy in the room with the most status who's super tall, and that it comes down to something that you can actually fix. So I think it takes some persuasion there. And it's funny because I try to do that on social media. You get a lot of the loud red pillars going, you know, money looks status, money looks status. And so, I do agree that stuff does help, right? If you have money, looks, and status, and you have good game, well, you're the top of the top, right? You're, I don't know, the Brad Pitt, the Leonardo DiCaprio, the Tates, the whatever. And then you can have the pick of your litter. But there's still a whole section of men down here below those guys where, okay, maybe you don't have the number one value in the world, but you still have value. And that gives you still a lot of women that you can be with. So I think it's a lot of mindset work in the beginning, and then taking them through the process of, all right, let's just take some action and let's see what happens. Let's get you approaching. Let's set up a profile that's going to work. And we can start to build some of that confidence through the competence of putting in the work. And so, yeah. And then it's a lot of motivation from there to like keep them going, because it can be a struggle, or in the beginning, when you are going out and approaching, when you are putting on an online dating profile, you get the shit beat out of you a little bit. Right. And so,
Yep.
and so you gotta also, this is how at least how I coach. I think awareness really helps, right? If you throw someone in there without telling them what's going to happen, it could be very dangerous. But if you tell them, hey, listen, man, we're going to go out, you're going to get rejected a lot. It's going to sting a little bit. You're not going to get matches for a little bit. Hey, man, you got to be swiping for like an hour a day to really get this to work. It's going to be a little bit of a grind, but if you just stick with it, you're going to get there. Hopefully the goal is on my end to motivate them to do that, and then to start to build from there.
Here's a revelation for me, which I think a lot of guys overlook, or when I mention on other channels, guys say, oh, it's woo-woo-y, but you have to remember that your target market, if you're trying to get women, is women. So guys, we can talk all day long. I know guys that are awesome, like high class guys, just salt of the earth, just solid human beings, but they can't get anything done with women because they do things to try to seek approval of other men, which is important. But you have to remember that women aren't necessarily as logical or rational as guys are. They're all about the feels or the emotions. So when I talk about the emotional stuff, sometimes guys they get turned off by it. But think of this: emotion is literally energy in motion. So she can feel your energy, and this was a huge revelation for me. And this came to me at a time when I was doing sales, like 200 outbound. If you guys have ever had jobs like that, 200 outbound cold calls a day, you get told like 90% of the time to F off, not a no, like F off, you're selling shit, everything you do is terrible, you should reconsider your life. But once you start not only not getting down after the rejection, but looking forward to it, because it's just one step closer to the yes, and you're in a good commission structure, especially, you're like, all right, one step closer to the yes, and you get some momentum, then you can feel it on the phone. If you guys have ever worked in sales, try smiling before you get on the phone, or try standing up and looking at yourself in the mirror, and you'll notice a difference in the quality of your output or your production in terms of conversion. And for me, this was huge once I realized with girls, to the point where if I'm having a crappy day, I'll just cancel a date, or because I know it. I've learned with enough data points in my experience that if I'm not feeling good about myself, or something's kind of off internally, she will pick up on that. These chicks, they can see right through you. So you may think you're hiding it. You may be smiling on the surface like Robin Williams, but like underlying depression, we all know how that story ends. Women can see right through that stuff. You're not hiding anything. So really, yeah, okay, try to increase your money, try to stay in good physical shape, try to elevate your status, but really try to work on your emotional state. And I've noticed for me, I do the best when I'm just comfortable and cool with everything. Everything's in order in my life. Everything makes sense in the universe. It's all balanced. Again, recently I spent 3 months at home grinding away, and I was really stressed out because I was overworking myself. I mentioned it on channels, like I felt like I was overworking and not being productive at the same time, kind of one of those weird transitional phases. And I saw that in front of my face in real time. My game was off. I was just a little uncalibrated. It's not that I was socially uncalibrated. It's not that I didn't know systematically what to do. It's not that logically I didn't know how to run them through the sequence. At my core, there was a bit of dissonance with my energy. And I saw that in terms of my real world analog results. So think in terms, guys, that like, hey, do you feel good about yourself? Are you cool, calm, collected? And that'll make a big difference for you. And then I've also noticed with girls that if they're let's say an emotional scale of 0 to 10. So for like a music festival, if they're like in party mode, like, whoa, yeah, balls to the wall, like girls night out, want to have fun. Let's say that she's at a 7. You have to meet or exceed her energy level in that instance. So the same girl you pick up at a nightclub when you're out raging with your boys and she's out with her girls, and then you meet her again on a Wednesday night, back in her normal life, boring day to day, whatever, doesn't really have much going on. Neither do you. Well, her core energy or baseline energy level maybe a 2 or 3. And I've noticed that too with like I like artsy fartsy, like kind of hippie-ish type chicks, but not like super extreme hippie. So a lot of those girls, like she could be a super cool chick, but let's say she operates at an energy level of 3. Well, if she's at a 3 and I come in at a 9, like yeah, let's go, let's rage. She's like, oh, dude, who the f is that guy? Although that's not me 100% of the time. I'm normally, I'm normally kind of more low key too. And so for those girls, you kind of have to. If she's a 3, you got to meet her maybe a 3 or 4, and then slowly escalate that too. So maybe guys, if you haven't thought about it before, start thinking in terms of your energy level and then what sort of emotional state you're in. And because women really do pick up on that, and you'll notice like if you can say like, oh, I'm the man, pat yourself on the back, yeah, I got it all going on, but in your core, if you think you don't have much going on, she's going to pick up on that. And once you understand that, once you know how to kind of measure that, how to gauge that in yourself, that adds a new dimension to the dating game that'll help potentially take you to the next level.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, man, that's great. I'll just add to that too. First of all, you're spot on, and I'll just kind of chime in for one of the reasonings behind it that guys have to understand. And this is everything. And I think it, when I say it, I get it because I've been teaching it for so long, but I have to also understand that maybe if a guy hears this, he kind of gets it, but he doesn't really internalize it for a while. And that's that it's very simple. Men and women are different creatures. They become attracted to different things. So a woman is going to be more attracted by the way that you can get her emotions lifted and triggered. Men, maybe a little bit, but not as much, right? Like let's say, for example, you guys are in a club. Hypothetically, this probably rarely happens, but hypothetically, super hot girl comes over to you. You're having a good time, da da da. Her energy is super low, but she's chill, but she's hot. Do you care? Probably not, right? It's like she's hot, she's talking to you, you're having a good time, you're just in the zone. Guy comes over to a woman doing that, unless he's like, again, super status, something that, like a celebrity or something like that. But if she doesn't know him and you come in like super low energy and just kind of like chilling, da 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 da, it's going to be hard for her to really pay attention and really understand, like, okay, who is this guy and why should I give a shit about talking to him? And it's all because of that energy and that energetic state and how are you going to make her feel? That's everything right there. That's like the simplification of Jaron, kind of like of what you're saying, especially and specifically in that nightclub instance, but really anytime, right? So in the nightclub instance, like that's when you have to have like super high energy, all that. You don't need that all the time if you're like on a date or something like that. But still, whether it's nightclub, whether it's grocery store, whether it's a date, whether it's wherever it is, you need to do something that's going to trigger her emotions. And if you're not doing that, you might come off creepy or weird. She doesn't feel safe, right? All the things a woman needs to check the boxes of okay, I'm attracted to him. I want to sleep with him. So just super important there, Jaron. I like what you said.
Yeah,
I've had guys even that I've gone out with in real life, and they're getting shut down all night. Like, hey man, what's the deal? And I'll tell them, and it's funny. The same guys a lot of times don't listen. Like, okay, your spatial reasoning's a bit off. Like, you need to notice that. Like, we're talking guy to guy, bro to bro, and like I know a bit about the game. Like when you get too close to me, you'll notice I take a step back. That's not an invitation for you to step forward. So like you're making me feel uncomfortable. Imagine what you're doing to women, because women are much more tuned into those things. Or hey man, you're talking a little too accelerated. You have kind of like a little anxiety behind your energy. Again, if I can feel it, then she can feel it tenfold. And I'll tell these guys to their face, and they usually get combative. It's like the fact you're getting combative when I'm presenting something that I've noticed to you. Also, women can feel this thing. So a lot of times, energy wise, it takes some work for guys, but it comes down to a little bit of calibration there too. But ask your guy friends. Like if guys don't want to hang out with you, why would a chick want to hang out with you?
I have an example from the other day. So I like Tripp what you're saying. Like it takes a while for guys to internalize that. I just had that internalization about 4 minutes ago when Jaron said that. I was on a date and I had sex the night before. So I had no sexual drive going at all. And she was pretty sexually like charged. Like you could see it in her eyes. She had that look. And she also had a ton of caffeine that day, so she was like super energized. And I was just chilling. I was tired. I really didn't really want to be there. And lo and behold, we're not having a second date because the only emotions I probably triggered in her were boredom. So that's really, yeah, that's super powerful, man. Just, it's all about energy.
Yeah, I love how you said that too. That it's emotion is nothing more than energy in motion. And I think it's so important. Like, there's a reason why when things are going well, like let's say things are going well at work, um, you got a date that night, you go ahead and you clean up your apartment, you feel productive and energized, like, oh, I can't wait for this date. Yeah, you're gonna do a lot better than if you're really kind of down on yourself or you don't clean up. Like, that experience with that girl coming over is going to be completely different if you're not prepared and in that right mental zone. So I really, really love that. And I definitely think, at least what we've talked about before, like doing some of those affirmations, which is exactly kind of what Jaron was saying, was smiling in the mirror. You got to amp yourself up and understand that you're good enough and you can kill it. So don't get too down on yourself, and also don't be that monotone, boring guy that Joel tends to be on his dates. No, I'm just teasing you. But anyways, this was a really, really great talk. It looks like some people got some great information, and I'm sure that everybody who watches the replay is going to really have a lot of key pieces that everybody had talked about. So let's go ahead and do a roundtable. And we'll start with you, Jaron. What's going on in your life?
Alrighty, yeah, I've got quite a few things going on. I haven't been doing too much content lately. I do have my own YouTube channel. Just hit me up on Instagram at Jaron Scott. It's right down there on the screen there. You can get a link to my YouTube channel. You can hit me up directly. I've been on the road a lot. I do a lot of my travel during the summer, so I'm getting ready to get home and get back on a routine and a schedule. Huds, you and I have some stuff going on. Tripp and you and I have collaborated. Joel, you and I have collaborated, so I'll be doing a lot more of that. I'll be getting larger audiences and more frequency, and really focusing on making my brand more into a business as I'm able to start pulling away more from my corporate professional life and leaning more into the for now solopreneur type thing, but actually scaling that as a business. So I have a lot of fun things down the pike once I'm actually home and able to put all my time, focus, and energy into that, because it is really tough when you're on the road all the time. And then, so again, hit me up on Instagram at Jaron Scott. You can find the channel. I also manage a group called the Top 10% group. I believe, Joel, you are in that group. You're one of the newer members. So that's a group for guys looking to level up in all areas of love and life by building lives worth living and loving. Yes, we cover the dating topics, but we touch on a myriad of topics. That's one of the core verticals. I'm a proponent of balance. So again, guys that like, hey, they're only focused on making money, and then they come out the other end of that like, hey, I'm millions of dollars, but I have no dating skills. Like, those are the guys get taken for. So you want to make sure that you're trying to create balance in your life, and that looks different for every guy. You'll have guys in the group that they're killing it business wise, but maybe not so well in dating. You have guys that are killing it fitness and dating wise, but maybe not so well in business. So it's really just about helping each other level each other up. We have about 110 members in there now, but I am quite proud of the fact that we have a high level of engagement. Roughly 2/3 of guys are engaged at least in the last 30-day period. We do monthly Q&A calls. We actually have 2 or 3 workshops that are user-led sessions that are getting more into like very specific parts of business or finance or fitness or dating. So we're really promoting guys in the group to leverage their knowledge and share their expertise, and that's getting a lot of momentum, a lot of buzz, and a lot of engagement in the group. So I'm looking forward to getting more guys in there. And then I mentioned this, Huds, on the show with you the other day. Guys, if you're watching right now and you're like, okay, I get in the group, but like, what am I going to get out of it? Think more in terms of what you can give. I've noticed that once you start giving more, people just start giving you stuff. You didn't have to ask for it. Just doors start opening for you. So that's kind of the approach we take in this group. And there's a lot of guys making really big steps. We have guys that came in a year ago. Hey man, I'm 100 pounds overweight. I smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, and I drink 12 beers just to fall asleep. And for them, like, all right, I have my first job. I'm not smoking anymore. I haven't drank in 6 months. I'm only 60 pounds overweight. Well, you might look at that guy on the street like, oh, that guy has some work to do. But what you don't see is the work that guy's already done. Or you see other guys that they've already got it all together, but like, you know what? Like, I'm so ahead in these areas of my life. I'm a little behind here. So really, like, yes, we cover the dating topics, but we cover a myriad of topics, and it's really about just helping us build each other up together. So that's the top 10% group. Again, Instagram at Jared Scott. Hit me up, drop me a DM for more information. We'll get you in there and get you plugged into the network.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, Tripp.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm actually really excited. I just started a new live panel show, and we're going to be continuing to do that every Monday night, 8 p.m. Central. If you guys, any of you guys are in Chicago, want to come on the show on a Monday night, you're all invited. So just let me know. We'll have you on. We can promote whatever it is that you guys are doing, and just be part of the conversation, because the conversation's been really fun. So yeah, for all of you who are watching on YouTube, if you want to check out that live show or any of the other videos I have, I put videos out every week helping guys with dating, attraction, meeting women. Check out the Tripp Advice channel on YouTube. Let's see what else. And then, yeah, I mean, I have a full team of coaches. We're coaching guys. We're doing one-on-one coaching with guys to help them have the actual dating lives that they want. Joel, we worked with you. You were an incredible success in the program, and we see that all the time. We also have a Facebook group that's a private Facebook group called Tripp's Corner. You get access to that if you join coaching or you get any of my courses that I have. But yeah, coaching has been just, like you were saying, I think we just started this, HUDs. Like, there's no better feeling in the world when a guy gets results due to something that you help them with. It's like, I don't know any better feeling in the entire world when I get a text message from a guy who tells me they got engaged, they met an amazing woman, they built confidence, and we get those all the time. And it's all because we have a coaching program that works and actually gets guys results. So even if you're 70 years old or you're in your early 20s, we can absolutely help you. So trippadvicecoaching.com, go over there. You can book a call with my team and you can learn more about how coaching can help you, because it's really one of the best ways to get faster results.
Awesome. Good stuff. Joel, do you want to speak at all?
Sure thing. So yeah, I'm in Poland right now. Moved to a different city, and just having a dating life that I never dreamed of. Like Tripp was saying a year ago, I think I lost my virginity about a year ago. I went to Tripp. I was like, dude, I can't even approach a girl. It's just too much. And he just had me start recording myself talking to girls in public, and it was so cringy. But what I realized, it wasn't as bad as I thought in my head. And it's just been a year of grinding, a lot of pain, but like it's starting to actually manifest, and it's unreal. Like, had a date this morning, having a girl coming tomorrow from, like, a Ukrainian girl coming from a different city. So got my first main, Jared. Shout out, I thought of you. And you always say that. And last night, I'll share a quick story. Had a crazy date. Like, it was my birthday yesterday, and a date canceled. So I went out that night just to walk around the city, good attitude, just like whatever, who cares. Run into this girl. She's just walking with her headphones on. We go on like a 2.5 hour instant date, and we're sitting on this boat. We're like looking at the water, and she goes like, yeah, so today was my birthday. I was like, you fucking kidding? So it was her birthday, it was my birthday, and we ended up on an instant date. And it's just like unreal, man. So yeah, guys, if you're watching and you want this, go out and get it. You put in the work, it will be worth it. Take from someone who couldn't even go ask a girl for the time a year ago. That was too hard for me. So you'll get it done for sure. And in terms of YouTube and stuff, I do have my channel, Sobriety University. I'm switching over my style to all vlog style, so it's going to be more exciting. I'm going to be showing some of my trips and a little more of the exciting part, not the boring grungery of addiction. So come on over to that channel and be entertained. So
Good stuff. Well, I love what you're saying there, Joel. Like, truly, just going out there, you never know what type of random experiences you're gonna have. I mean, I told you that story how the other day I was landed on that plane. We were stuck there for like over 3 hours, and I don't know. I just ended up in the cockpit with them, hanging out, shooting the shit. Like, the most random stuff happens when you just put yourself out there, and that's any type of adventure, any type of potential relationship, the instant date. There's so much. There's so much when you just go out there and you have fun and you have a smile on your face. With me, if you guys have any questions or you want to get connected, right down there on Instagram, the husband, you can shoot me a question. I'll answer it just because I enjoy helping people. If you want to book a call, I have a free 30-minute initial consult. We'll see if we're a match, and then we can figure out what to where to go from there. And then outside of that, the future of Men of Now, we're going to continue to have fantastic guests like Tripp and Jaron and a lot of others. We're going to hit a lot of amazing topics, and I'm super excited to see where it all goes. So again, thank you so much, Tripp, and
Thank you,
we will
brother.
see you guys. We will see you guys next time.